But first, we're going to get some background on the systems in use on this farm and advice from our panel. I'm here with George Ramsbottom, and we're talking about the contribution of EBI to our dairy industry. George, where has EBI brought us as a dairy industry?
So if we look back over the 20 odd years I've been involved, Martin, we can see tremendous changes taking place. Back around 2000, herd average milk solids yield was around 300 kilos of milk solid and calving interval close to 400 days. And now, on a national basis, we're looking at a calving interval around 375 days and the milk solid yield north of 400, heading for 450. So there's been tremendous change genetically in the industry. We reckon it's worth about €1 billion to dairy farmers over the last 2 decades.
How is EBI viewed internationally?
So EBI is viewed in a very positive light internationally. We see many other countries expressing an interest in purchasing Ireland's genetics at this stage. And I suppose the reason behind that is it's a very balanced index. It brings a lot of factors along. It's not just about milk. There's increasing recognition of the value of fertility and other traits as well, and the EBI encapsulates all of those traits in the one index.
How is EBI linked into the sustainability of the Irish dairy system?
So if you look at it from a sustainability perspective, the big issues that come in under sustainability are efficiency of milk production, which is captured admirably in the EBI, and secondly, the core values that's there around fertility. And we know that it costs X amount and there's X amount of carbon tied up with getting a heifer into the milking power in the first place. And having fertility in the index ensures or helps to ensure that they stay around the farm for longer. And the longer they stay around the farm, the more you're diluting those heifer rearing costs.
So we've 3 main factors. We've longevity, fertility, production. These are the factors driving sustainability.
There are 3 huge drivers of it as well. And I suppose another factor that's captured in the EBI, Martin, is the whole health sub-index. So that's becoming more and more to the fore now. So because cows are lasting longer, we need them genetically to be more healthy, and that's captured in EBI as well.
George, if we're looking at marginal farms with lower EBI and they need to get or breed their herd into a higher EBI position, what are the steps these farms need to take?
Well, Martin, probably the fastest way to really turn around a herd is probably to buy in high genetic merit stock, high EBI heifers. Just to give you an example of a herd that's done it, we had a look a few years ago at a herd who had effectively turned over all of his cows in 1 year, sold practically everything and bought in very high EBI stock. The EBI of the herd changed from around 70 to around 160. Now this is going back a few years, so at the time they were in the top 10% nationally. In doing so, the first thing he noticed was that his meal bill went down, because all of a sudden he had less meal to feed because he wasn't milking through the winter. The cow's fertility had improved. But what really jumped out at him was, for his 120 cows, the milk check that he got in total was another 80,000. It was worth 80,000 more to him at the end of the year compared to the previous year with the lower EBI herd. So it just goes to show that through a combination of better quality milk and better fertility, the milk check you get is going to go up substantially.
How does fertility improve our milk solids production?
How fertility drives the increase in milk solids, Martin, is through increasing the number of days that farmers are seeing in milk production in their herds. So instead of having maybe 60 and 100 cows calved at the end of February, they'll have 90 cows calved at the end of February from the same starting date. So those extra 30 or 40 cows calved in the month of February, those cows are milking through to the end of November. So the milk solids from fertility is coming from days in milk. And we can see that all around the place.
For herds that are apprehensive about having a high calving rate or a lot of compact calving, what's the length of time it's going to take to improve EBI?
I'd say the first thing they should do is talk to their neighbours who are operating a higher EBI system and see how they're managing to bring their herds along and adapting to the demands that are there for calving and compact calving in the spring. We wouldn't encourage anyone to jump into very compact calving unless they have the system ready for it. So they have the accommodation for the calves, they have the outlets for the calves that are going to be sold off their farms. But they can also breed themselves into it over a number of years. So not change over the herd in 1 year, but change over the herd in 3 or 4 years and work their way into it slowly. And it will pay benefits in the long run.
What's the minimum EBI we would look at when we're breeding replacements?
As a rough rule of thumb, Martin, when you're trying to select, Look at cows around 150 EBI. And those cows, particularly the ones that calve and have a good interval between when they calved and when they're being bred, they're the cows you'd be targeting for the top EBI bulls that are available to breed the next generation of heifers. So if we stick at a figure of around 150 EBI, beef the ones that are below that, you'll have maiden heifers and you've some high EBI cows to breed the next generation from. And the quality of the stock that'll come from those is really, really good.
How long, George, will the increase take, roughly?
I'd say it'll take a 7-year period on an average farm to jump by around 100 EBI. But you can do it, it will happen.
George, for cows that are not hitting the minimum EBI to breed replacements from, how are we going to get a calf of value from these cows?
Okay, so to breed those high value beef calves from them, Martin, what we're looking at the DBI, the Dairy Beef Index, to select the bulls that we're going to use. And there's two components to it. There's a dairy side of it, we're looking at the gestation length, and we're looking at the calving ease on that side of it. But secondly, we have the beef merit on it. We've values for carcass conformation and values for carcass weight. And we look at getting a good balance of the two of those and judiciously picking the cows for certain bulls. So you'll pick 2 or 3 high DBI bulls and you'll use those across the cows that you're not going to breed for dairy AI.
George, tell me about the maintenance sub-index. What's the worry if we make our cows too small?
The maintenance sub-index is a very valuable trait. It's a really, really good predictor of the mature cow live weight. So we looked at data in the database that we had, and what we found is that around 590 kilos live weight, will equate to a maintenance sub-index of around 10. And that's a mature cow, a cow in her 3rd lactation at 150 days in milk. So if we choose bulls with a much higher maintenance sub-index, they'll actually breed smaller cows. Most farmers will look at breeding cows that are around 10 to 15 euro for maintenance sub-index, and that's giving them a modest sized cow, somewhere between 590 and 565 kgs. Those are a medium sized cow, but they'll also throw acceptable quality Frisian cattle for the beef market as well, that are relatively easy finished and have a decent carcass weight.
So George, we're not looking at something that's either too high or too low in terms of maintenance.
But the very high maintenance sub-index cattle, they kill very light, and they're not really something that the market is going to require in the long term. It's something in a kind of a medium band we're looking at, Martin, to be honest.
George, how important is it that we get our replacements calved early in the season?
So ideally what we're looking for with the heifers that we're breeding, the next generation of calves, in an ideal world you'd like to see them all calved by the end of February, because it gives them a really strong chance of calving themselves at 2 years of age. And not enough of our heifers are currently calving at 2 years of age, so there's a good bit of scope for improvement there as well. And one part of it is having those heifers calved, those heifer calves born nice and early in the calving season, so they get every opportunity to calve down themselves 2 years later in the spring, in early spring.
We're going to have some high EBI cows that are calving late. What's the best decision to make with these, George?
I'm afraid, Martin, it's kind of going to be tough love for most of those cows. In terms of breeding, I'd say it'll be beef will be the choice for most of them, unless they resume cyclicity and are bred in the first 3 weeks of the breeding season or that. I'd be putting them to beef. I don't think I'd be using dairy AI on them, because the heifers will be born too late to give us a good run at getting them in calf to calve themselves at 2 years of age.